one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. Do I have any public comment from the board? No. Alrighty, any public comment from the public? Alrighty, we do have a 7:15 appointment, but I will walk down our current business until we get to 7:15. The first item of business is a peddler's license for Nicole Richard doing business as Solar City. I don't see anyone here. Do we have some paperwork on that?
It should be in your file.
Yes, we do. Do we want to take this up without the applicant here, or do we want to?
I would prefer we meet the applicant, as is our practice.
Okay, so let's put that aside and see if the applicant arrives. Our second item is to discuss legal counsel response time. This was an action item from last week that we said we would put on tonight's agenda for discussion purposes. Any comment?
Well, just so people at home are aware of why this topic came up, we've had many times over the past 6 months to 1 year where we have sought legal counsel advice, whether written or verbal, and it has been, we've had to go back and request it multiple times, have gotten half answers, untimely answers that have caused us to delay meetings with people, and that, when we're paying somebody to do this job, that's not what we expect.
And we're still waiting for response on our review of our traffic rules and regulations. There's one lawsuit that we're involved with that I basically just tracked, and it finally has gone to court after a full year. Now, part of the problem was that one of the counsel that they had was either had an illness or some other issue, but there was not a backup to deal with that. And I would echo that it makes me concerned with the work product based on the delay. I believe that what comes out ultimately is a good product, but if you can't deal with it in between, I think there's a problem. And I would say that we would, at a minimum, ask legal counsel to come in to talk to us. And then when we go to, we reappointed them in June, I believe, or the end of June for the beginning of the fiscal year, but we ought to really consider perhaps a request for proposals next year.
I have always thought we should go out to request proposals at least every 2 years, if not every year, because I think it's easy for a firm to become complacent because they feel that, you know what, with inertia, that we're going to stay with you, we're not going to change, and then we degrade to the point of some of the things that Mr. Ebersol said with some of the cases, and, you know, we're just, one of the pitches of this company, of this legal counsel, is that they have expertise and a lot of advice. Well, what difference is the expertise and all these advice if they don't provide it in a timely way? You know, there are other people, even though a smaller firm may not have the number of attorneys, they have access to other attorneys to get advice from too. So I'd much rather be dealing with somebody who I think is really invested in the job and really shows that they want to work very closely in a partnership. And I have not gotten that from this firm for the past year.
I would agree, and specific on all the items that were mentioned, but specifically on the traffic study that we've asked them to do. That's over a year, and I personally and the previous town manager have asked several times, and we're told that it's done. It's just a matter of finishing up and bringing it in, but it's been over a year. I'm not sure we have to wait until their appointment is up. I would suggest that we may want to start reviewing alternatives or putting together a request sooner than that, if it pleases the board.
I'm for it.
Sure.
Okay, so, I don't know if I need a motion to that effect, but why don't we,
Should we ask them to come in to,
at the very least,
I should ask them to reapply. If we're gonna get requests for proposals, hopefully there'll be one of them.
Mr. Chairman, as a point of order, so I have my notes correct, is it Labor Council in particular, or is it
No.
the whole firm?
the whole
Oh,
firm.
General counsel. It's
General
not labor
counsel.
council at all. Thank you for
Yes.
that. It's not labor council. We obviously employ, well, not obviously.
Okay.
We do employ two councils, labor council for employee and union negotiations and personnel issues,
Okay.
and then general counsel for
So
the town. This is
general
general
counsel.
counsel.
Right. And as a general practice, I would agree with Mr. Alonso. It probably makes sense for us to review all of them on some regular basis, but I don't believe we're saying there's any deficiency with labor council at this time, and we're particularly interested in general counsel.
So general counsel.
Compliment and Page.
Gotcha. So noted, Mr. Chairman,
Okay, so
for you
let's-
to your board.
Okay.
Is there any time frame as to when you'd like to bring them in for discussion, or do you just want to discuss RFPs at this point?
I think
RFPs are fine, because if they want to continue to stay, they can come and make their case in responding.
Any direction as to ongoing open issues? Do you want them to
continue them.
continue on as special counsel as we move forward?
I think they're,
Well, I think they're still legal counsel. We're not revoking their
Okay.
their appointment at this point, but I certainly think that it would be good to find out where they are with all the different cases that they've got.
Very good.
I think we'd want to make sure, there may be cases, because in the past, and we haven't changed counsel very often, but when we have, we've evaluated the cases that are outstanding, and if they made sense to bring them to new legal counsel or just keep them with the old counsel just for continuity. So we would have to look at what cases are pending, and I don't believe there are many.
so why don't we begin that activity, and if it requires an agenda item to come back prior to actually issuing that.
I'll generate a report to the board indicating what your options are, how you can proceed, and asking for direction where needed. And then it'll be put before the board for how they want to proceed with, RFPs or just in general. Last I checked, you don't actually have to do an RFP for an attorney, a doctor, an engineer, because they're so personal to the board. You can solicit directly with the councils that and those types of experts directly, but that doesn't prohibit you from drafting any guidance RFP type thing that you want to.
My thought would be that we'd want some sort of, for lack of a better word, bake-off, to have anybody that's interested in our business come in and pitch us on what they offer, whether it's an official RFP or not.
Yeah, that's absolutely within the ballpark. You can have
Okay.
them make a presentation. However you want to structure it is fine.
I think what's good about the RFP process is we get to write down what we're looking for, so that we're all on the same page for what we expect.
Great. Would you happen to be here for Solar City? Okay, why don't you come up to the podium here and tell us who you are. We're reviewing an application for a peddler's license for Nicole Richard, doing business as Solar City.
Yes. Yep. So my name's Noelle Richard. I started with Solar City about 2 months ago. I live in Pepperell, and I was originally selling towards the Dunstable area, but as I'm aware, the cap has been lifted in Lunenburg, and all of the people around are super responsive to it. So I was hoping to be able to solicit door-to-door in the town.
I think one of the questions we usually ask is, what are the times that you're planning to do this, in days?
Honestly, I know, like, Pepperell, I was only allowed to knock there 9 to 5. Dunstable, I was allowed to knock until 8. I think 8's too late personally for people with little kids. I like 7, I'm normally like between 7. I don't want to push it after that personally, but. And in the winter months, I don't plan on walking out there on the slippery roads in the cold.
One of the things that, if you're going to work an area, just because people get suspicious of people going from door to door, especially neighbors who watch somebody go from door to door, you may want to as much as you are able, you may want to touch base with the police department and let them
Yes.
know that you're going to be working this area, so if somebody calls in,
Yep.
and of course, if you're wearing a Solar City shirt like you have, or something that identifies you, it would make it easier too.
Yep. My company actually requires you to call into the police station before you start knocking and let them know around what area you'll be in and
Okay,
then
good.
for how
Well,
long.
that's-
So
that's a
I'm
good
used to doing that.
For everybody's sake, it's a good practice.
Yes.
I would make a motion, we grant the peddler's license to Nicole Richard. doing
Second?
business.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck. Okay, did we sign on that or no?
Do you
No,
have
do we
a
have anything
license?
to
It's a yellow one.
Oh, it should be, the license should be right there.
Right, there we go. There we go. Alrighty.
Wow, big yellow one for peddlers. You have to pin this on yourself so you're visible?
Okay, I think we can go ahead in with our appointment for 7:15, which is a change of manager license for B&H Corporation doing business as Mickey Shays. Why don't you come forward, please?
We give that license to her.
Excuse me?
Did she get the license tonight, or
Did she get that license tonight?
does she pick it up tomorrow?
I'm not certain. I think she should come back tomorrow to make
Yeah.
sure that whatever needs to be filed is
Right.
filed.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
So that- right.
Oh, Thursday.
Thank you.
Greetings.
Hi, how are you?
Good, yourself?
Good, thank you. My name is Heidi Kane. I've been in the food and beverage industry for about 20-plus years, and I'm taking over as general manager for Mickey Shays. I have a lot to offer them as far as experience goes, and I hope to stay on with Mickey for, a very long time.
Can you talk a little about your previous experience?
Well, going back is from where I started.
No, start from most recent. and go
Most
back,
recent?
And I'll tell you when to stop, when it gets to be like 1990.
Well, I worked at Slattery's for 11 years as the host manager, and I started young, though, because my family owned Cormier Catering in Fitchburg. So I worked there from the time I was about 12 years old until I was 30 years old. So, I have a lot of experience doing this. Yeah.
Good.
And Slattery's was the establishment you spent most, if not all, of your...
Well, I'd say Cormier Catering would be, because I served with the Army for 4 years as a civilian service. So whenever I did a detail from, May till October. So from November to beginning of May, I was with Slattery's. Yeah.
Paperwork looks in order. Is there any...
Everything seems in order. I would make a motion that we accept the manager change at Mickey Shays to Heidi Kane as the new manager.
Thank you.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you
Good
very
luck there.
much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I told her never tell them your age.
They'll never guess.
All right, our next item is to revisit a topic on pay-as-you-throw bags. This was something that we reviewed before, and I think there was just an outstanding item on the reorder of bags and whether we would go with a thicker one or not. I think also we're talking about the possibility of a larger.
I see, Mr. Chair, that it was updated on 9/6, but without me comparing this, compared to the one I don't have with me from that time, can anybody tell me what was changed?
I have the old one with me. don't
'Cause
think
it said that-
I don't
Do we
notice
have to-
anything
do we have to
changed.
hold it up to the light?
Because Carrie had suggested not implement anything until January 1st.
Right.
we
Well, we can make a decision and not implement it until then,
Right.
that's for sure.
None of the numbers are different,
Yeah, it's kind of,
so
I don't know what,
I don't know what might be different.
I don't know what was changed. The one question I had asked is that compared to, was the thickness, and that was because to get a price of what it would be to get closer to the contractor thickness of 3 mil, and I made it a point of saying that's not terribly critical, I just wanted to know what the cost was.
And it doesn't appear that this does
Right, and
that.
this does the same thing. I mean, as I said then, I'm in favor of trying them out. I think I think we'd be surprised, not many people have come to us because they may do other ways, but, I mean, I think it would be helpful to do this, given we have the, we have the caveats, obviously, you still can't put hazardous stuff in them, you still can't put things that you can't put in the other bags, so it's not anything different about what you can put in them. It just allows for a larger container, which makes it easier to throw away some things.
The only issue that I have is that if it's a larger bag, I would worry that people would surpass the 30-pound limit. And I was hoping that if we did it, we could write, on the bag itself that the limit's 30 pounds, so that there's no question about it. Because I think a lot of people don't even realize it's 30 pounds.
We could probably put them on all of them and just add that to be printed.
Right,
But I can tell you, as somebody who regularly in my basement uses the big contractor bags, I don't know that I've ever reached one maybe I've reached one that's 25 pounds, and that's a lot. I mean, people,
It kind of depends on what it is, small things can be very heavy, and,
Yeah, but whoever does them has to move them to the street anyway, so,
So, I mean, I think no matter what, we can have it printed on
yeah, you can
there.
have it printed on, not to exceed 30 pounds
And
on all of them.
I think Carrie mentioned that if they do exceed 30 pounds, they tag them and leave them.
Right.
So then, the people are responsible for getting rid of them another way. It would be, if we go with this, I would like to collect some data on maybe calls to the DPW or other information we get. Is there an issue with the bigger bags, if we try it for 6 months? Or is it just smooth?
Well, we could ask Casella to say, hey, listen, let us know of any ones that you're denying for weight.
Do you think that they'll have a record of that?
Well, if they're the ones denying it, and it's going to be tagging it, then they must have.
Yeah, well, certainly the driver, because it's a one-man operation now, right? The driver.
So the driver would just note them. I can't believe there'll be many, if there's any. So I'm not against doing that. I don't think it's going to be an issue. because-
The other thing was looking at increasing the mills for the basic 15 and 33.
I had no feeling about that one way or another. I mean, it's 0.15 mil difference between what we have now. And I don't know that makes, I've never had a problem with a bag breaking personally.
Yeah, me neither.
I have. It all depends on,
But the price difference, I think it's not even, it's 15 cents for the 33-gallon bag difference than it is now. So, and 5 cents for the 15-gallon bags, for the thicker mill, so.
Well, given that we have a new town manager, do we want to take this back and ask him to make a recommendation after he has an opportunity to find out the one missing price point for the thicker bag, and maybe a quick conversation with Casella?
Sure. As long as, we don't need to vote, I just like to
Yeah.
get the sense, are people amenable to it, because I don't want to miss the January deadline.
No, I think we should still shoot for a January decision, in time for January.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to
implementation.
have Mr. Marcello, look it up and look up what the thicker gauge would be on the higher one. And maybe to Phyllis's point, maybe the thicker gauge would be more conducive to people wanting to stuff them, so maybe keeping at a smaller gauge would prevent that. But it'd be nice to know what the options are, at least.
Right. Great. All righty. We don't have any minutes. We did get minutes today. We'll take them up next meeting. Warrants?
Here's the first set.
This is for accounts payable in the amount of $139,560.40. payroll deduction in the amount of $153,094.02. And another payroll in the amount of $747,772.16. Any action file issues? You want to do this as an action file, or do you want to do that with your report?
Whatever's your preference, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
If you're dealing with it now, I can update the board, or you
Yeah,
can
why
just
don't
take
you walk us through that one, if you will?
it.
So if there's a follow-up to the discussion we had on Unitil relative to their
Circuit upgrades?
circuit upgrade, right?
Exactly. So the board's aware of what the issue is. The moratorium has, in essence, been lifted. They're adding units on in the order that they have applied. The board requested that a letter be sent asking for an update. Before you is the letter that was drafted on your behalf, requesting the chairperson to sign it, and there's the letter for your review. If it's so signed, if it's the will of the board, it'll be mailed out tomorrow.
And John Londa put this together?
Yes, he did. It was drafted by Mr. Londa. Thank you.
Okay. So for the public one, I just read what's in here. It says, to Unitil, attention, John DiNapoli. The purpose of this...
Hold on a second. May I interrupt for a second?
Yes.
Before this goes out,
Yep.
it should say, "Dear Mr. DiNapoli," I think.
Exactly. I just picked that. It's addressed to the right person, and then it says, "Dear," wrong person. The purpose of this letter is to request an update on the progress of upgrading the two circuits that serve the town of Lunenburg that have had a moratorium for interconnection of distributed generation. We appreciate Unitil making this a priority so that Lunenburg citizens will be able to connect their home solar projects as well as the two town projects with Select Energy Development Incorporated. With the changes coming to solar incentives, it is important for the town of Lunenburg to bring its projects to closure this calendar year to take advantage of these favorable incentives. This update will allow us to keep the Lunenburg citizens that are considering solar projects advised of the expected completion of this work. The two town projects will continue to be advanced as much as possible in the interim. They do not need completed...
They do need.
They do need, completed interconnection agreements in order to be added to the Massachusetts System of Assurances for Net Metering Eligibility Systems, Mass ACA. Any assistance that you can provide to Select Energy Development on our behalf to complete the applications would be greatly appreciated. Sincerely, Jamie Toll, Board of Selectmen.
I would offer a motion that we accept this letter and authorize the chair to sign on the Board of Selectmen's behalf and send to Unitil.
Seconded?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Right. Committee reports. Mrs. Luck.
There was a full house at the MART meeting on August 30th. The main issue was the memorandum of understanding that was sent out to all Council on Agings regarding the Council on Aging's use of vans, reporting, and insurance. MART's requesting that the towns, even though MART gives them the vans to use, they want the towns to take over the insurance because there've been a lot of accidents and their insurance is going up. At the meeting, there was more communities than I've ever seen there before, and they pushed back and said that the insurance carrier, MIA, is saying they're not going to do that. And so Mayor Mazzarella of Leominster suggested that maybe the insurance companies try to work it out. But there's a follow-up meeting on this Thursday that the interim town manager is going to come along with us, and Sue Doherty of the Council on Aging, and Nancy Forrest, who's our insurance person. So all four of us will be at that meeting. I don't think it's going to be resolved that quickly. I think people are, there were other issues too, but it's not sitting well with people to handle it this way. So I'll keep you posted. The school committee met 8/24 and 9/7. They've established a lifelong learning advisory commission. They want to develop an adult ed program at the new middle high school so that the community is able to take advantage of this beautiful new facility we've given the schools. They are planning on giving a report in May. Wendy Bertram is heading that up. The superintendent, now, of course, the stipulation with the adult ed is that it be cost neutral and not cost the school system money. So, they're just trying to work on it from that perspective. The superintendent is trying to explore the preschool program and thinking about adding another section. There's really a lot of ELL youngsters, and the sooner you get them into the system, the better off they and the system will be. And there's also, she's also trying to figure out a way to carve out another kindergarten class, because there's 25 to 26 kids in the current kindergarten, and that's a lot of little ones per class. And there are 1,655 enrolled in the Lunenburg Public Schools. They're going to need one more bus at a cost of $60,000 to accommodate the increased enrollment of 86, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to do that. Mr. Launder presented a draft of his capital plan, which is still evolving, and they're meeting again tomorrow night. The interim town manager and I attended the annual meeting of the Central Mass Regional Stormwater Coalition this morning. They're planning another MS4 training for coalition members the week of October 17th. The first one was very well received, and they did a lot of filming and videotaping of those sessions, and those are going to be available on the website, they promise, very soon. One of our members, Sarah Kammer, attended that workshop, and she said it was great. So we're looking forward to this next one. They voted bylaws today and asked that member communities appoint 2 designees, a member of the BOS, town administration, and a technical staff person. So each town has 2 members at each meeting, or their designees. We'll discuss that at the Stormwater Task Force meeting, which is Thursday. I was elected to serve on the Coalition Steering Committee, which consists of reps from 15 member communities, and that meeting was right after the annual meeting. Thursday night, the Stormwater Task Force is going to review the scope of services submittals we had, and as well as whatever issues were brought up at the coalition meeting.
Mr. Hanso?
The school building committee met last Wednesday, so there's a couple of things to report. First of all, now as the project, the certain parts of the project are closing out, and they're releasing their retained the retention funds that they had with some of the vendors, and now they're doing a full accountant as things close. So the town is actually getting some rebates, so there's approximately an $80K rebate on the steel that was used because they put in extra time in case the weather, because of when they were putting it up, they were weather allowances that were never used or tapped into, so that's about $80,000. And there'll be about a $200,000 rebate, or we're calling it a rebate, but it won't be expended because of the asbestos abatement, where they found less asbestos in the existing high school than was anticipated. I think there was also less tonnage of removed material. So those are all good news. On the expenditure side, we had voted on a change order that we had done in agreement for 2 items in the amount of $38,069, and that was for the large bulk of that, about $34,400, was due to, we needed radio repeaters for the police department. So it was unknown at the time that the building was built. We thought that the radio repeaters for the fire could also be used by the police, but it could not. They after testing it, and you had to test it after the building was built, they needed repeaters. It wouldn't function from end to end without a repeater. So that was put in. And then there was, in the auditorium, there was a small step next to the handicap accessible seats available in the front row. There was a little lip that when we were giving tours, people were tripping on, and the building inspector said we really should put up rails, so those rails were put up on both sides of the auditorium. In fact, they were there already for the town meeting. So we approved those, and then we approved, we gave approval for, but they didn't have the change order finalized, but as Mrs. Luck said, there are 87 additional pupils in the school district. 41 or 2 are at the middle high school over what they had projected for the opening, and a lot of that was due to people moving into the district. Because of that, we need to buy more furnishings for desks, chairs, and some other, ancillary items for the furnishings for those 40 students that we didn't allow for. So we approved the furnishings from the owner's contingency in the amount of $9,100. So those were done. Building is, as you can see outside, the landscaping is coming along, all the fields are coming along, everything is on schedule. They're going through punch lists inside, and now that they're using the building, any little things that are coming up are being addressed to Sharmit, who continues to do a fabulous job. The official open house is scheduled for Saturday, October 22nd at 1 p.m. That will be the ribbon cutting and the dedication. That is homecoming. So after the homecoming parade, there will be an official ribbon cutting at the middle high school at 1 p.m. And as I get more details and as the program is created, I will bring more to this board and announce it further. Finance Committee meets this Thursday, and the Cable Advisory Committee meets again in October, when the PAC will have hopefully gotten more detail and maybe possibly even finalized for final review their business plan. They're doing that this month, so we're meeting, the Cable Advisory needs that for our next steps.
The only report I have is the Board of Health did award one grant for the septic system replacement program, and I believe they were reviewing another one last night, Monday. Yeah.
Good news.
Yeah, that's great. And I have the Building Reuse Committee met last night and agreed, as we discussed at our joint meeting last week, to proceed with an RFP process. Actually, 2 RFP, one for each of the 4 buildings and one for all of them as a package for a more inclusive town center proposal. And Adam Burney and the interim town manager, David, agreed to help assist in that effort. And David is going to get recertified as the procurement officer for the town, so that when that all comes together, the town assessor, at no cost to us, will do an assessment, an old-fashioned assessment, which will comply with the MGL requirement to then proceed with the RFP. David will be recertified, so that'll comply with the procurement officer, and we will then put an RFP out that will hopefully give us the data we promised at town meeting at no cost, as opposed to $10,000. So we'll have that data point. Don't know what it'll represent. The Capital Planning Committee met this afternoon. Our first meeting, we're going to begin the cycle for this year. The way the cycle works is the first pass-through is a long-range 10 to 20-year capital assessment that begins to zero in as we get closer to the budget cycle on the FY18 capital needs.
Is this earlier than you've done it in the past?
It's the same as last year, but that was a new effort. We start this early to look at the long-range strategic before it's influenced by the short-range budget. And then as we get closer to the budget, we start looking at FY18 piece of that longer-range strategic.
That's a great idea. I bet it worked well last year.
And then finally, the Town Manager Search Committee is beginning their interviews next week. We have 2 nights of interviews, hopefully to be finalized by October 3rd. Well, the interviews will be finalized. We'll meet on the 3rd to review the results and to have a conversation and prepare a recommendation to this board, which could be as early as the 4th, more likely the 11th. as, in terms of finalists for the permanent town manager. Town manager reports and department reports.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Before you is my inaugural report. I leave for your discussion and/or comment where necessary as you look through each topic, but I would like to highlight a few issues. Inventory of town land. I put before you the updated lists. They are color-coded. If you look at the field cards as well, it shows us what we know of each property in tax taking, if the town has control over it, or if it's not yet perfected. And those are on the field cards inside in the smaller sheets. That's before you for your review and further comment and direction, and I'll leave that as it is. As for out-of-office meetings, I'm going to be attending, as was indicated earlier, 9/22, the MART meeting, so I'll be out of the office. 9:30, which is a Friday, the ACO regionalization, I'll be at that meeting. Likewise, next week on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I'll be in Boston as part of the recertification. I will be in the office on Monday and Friday, and I will be taking the laptop home so I can log on remotely and take care of all of the invoices and emails and everything as soon as I get home in the evening. So there won't be any lag with any of that. I'll be able to follow up from home. There's a couple of new issues I'd like to bring to your attention, something that was put before you on your desk. Two letters from Kebabalicious, or to Kebabalicious, and/or about Kebabalicious. We hand-delivered the letter by constable dated September 15th. We're waiting for the certification to come back from the constable indicating that he did serve it, but this was the letter. And I have on good authority, he indicated that he did serve it, but I just don't have the certification yet. This letter is pursuant to what was voted last week, indicating to them that any further violations could lead to further action of the board. And lo and behold, if you turn the page, we have a memo, email from...
I don't believe we have.
I don't believe we have that.
Should be part of your package. I'll pass it down if you didn't get it. I apologize.
You want me to make copies?
Here, why don't you pass these down? There's a few copies. And I apologize to the board.
Okay, we're all set.
I apologize to the board. I thought I put it before you. I had it in front of me. If you look at the email from the Assistant Treasurer, I'll read it out loud. I received an insufficient fund notice for the amount of $400 check that we took in from Kebabalicious on 9/8/16. I will be doing that reversal today and mailing out an NSF letter to them. Respectfully, Sally A. Deming, Assistant Treasurer. So on 9/8, they sent in a bad check. On 9/15, we indicated to them in hand that any further violations could lead to further action of the board and could affect their license. So that's before the board for whatever discussion the board deems appropriate, and any further action, I'll await your instruction therewith. That concludes my report for the week. Anything that the board has for me, I'd certainly note and take care of.
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
I
Lanza.
want to note that I really do appreciate the format of the report. It really makes things very clear, and I like the follow-up actions. I mean, it really gives us a ready report of what is being discussed and proposed and what we can do going forward. So I commend the interim town manager on that report format. I really enjoyed it. I think it's going to be helpful going forward. As for this, we should really put this on. I think that the information concerning Kebabalicious really should be of the utmost concern, and we should, before, I think we should get this payment in full. I mean, I don't want to be the person who has to ask for bank checks, but we're close to that because we had an issue. The person was before us, and then the check bounced. That's not a good start to resolving this problem, so.
And that check is, according to the subject line, was for a grease trap non-compliance fee. For the sewer commission.
So I think we'll ask the town manager to follow up on that, and if there's any action required or not, it'll be on our next agenda.
Sure.
So I'm clear, the board is directing me to follow up to ensure that we get paid in full and report accordingly as to my, what transpires from that? Is that the direction of the board?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
And our next meeting it's October 4th, right? Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Which I was just going to say, our next meeting is October 4th. We don't meet next week. The sewer commission is in our chair. Is there any closing comment from the board? Any public comment from the public? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.